The transmission came on a quiet Tuesday morning when most of the world was still waking up. Coffee was being poured in kitchens across America. Children were getting ready for school. Office workers were sitting in traffic, complaining about their commutes. Nobody knew that in exactly 3 minutes, everything would change forever. The signal broke through every television, every radio, every phone, and every computer screen on the planet. It did not ask for permission. It simply took over, as if humanity's entire communication network was nothing more than a toy to be borrowed. The face that appeared was not human. It had compound eyes like an insect, each one containing thousands of tiny lenses that reflected light in disturbing patterns. Its mouth was a collection of mandibles that clicked together when it spoke. Its skin, if it could be called skin, was a dark purple shell that gleamed under harsh lighting. Species designation, human, the creature announced. Its voice was cold and mechanical, translated into perfect English by technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. Planet designation, Earth. You have been observed. You have been studied. You have been judged. Around the world, people stopped what they were doing. Forks hung in midair. Cars pulled over to the side of the road. Teachers and students stared at classroom screens together, united in shock. The Dominion Collective, representing 47 member species of the galactic community, has determined that your species represents a threat to stability and order. Your violent nature, your rapid technological advancement, and your expansion into space have not gone unnoticed. A decision has been reached. The creature paused, and in that pause, millions of hearts skipped beats. War is hereby declared upon your civilization. You are granted 1 standard galactic cycle to prepare your defenses. This equals approximately 90% of your planetary rotations. At the conclusion of this period, the combined fleet of the Dominion will arrive to carry out sentence. This is not a negotiation. This is not an invitation to surrender. This is simply a notification as required by galactic law. The creature's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Use your remaining time wisely. End transmission. The screens went dark. Then, slowly, normal programming returned. But nothing was normal anymore. In New York City, the United Nations Emergency Assembly gathered within hours. Delegates from every nation on Earth crowded into the Great Hall, their faces pale, their hands shaking. Some were crying openly. Others sat in stunned silence, staring at nothing. A few were praying, their lips moving in silent desperation. The Secretary General, a tired man from Portugal named Antonio Ferreira, tried to bring order to the chaos. His voice cracked as he spoke. We must remain calm. We must work together. Perhaps we can negotiate. Perhaps we can negotiate what? Shouted the Russian delegate. They said this is not a negotiation. They are coming to kill us all, and we fight, said the American delegate, though his voice lacked conviction. We have nuclear weapons. We have armies. We have nothing, interrupted the Chinese delegate quietly. Did you not hear? 47 species. A combined fleet. They have been watching us. They know exactly what we have. And they are not afraid. The chamber erupted into arguments, accusations, and despair. Some blamed America for attracting attention with their space programs. Others blamed China for their military expansion. A few blamed everyone for everything. In the back of the chamber, far from the shouting and the cameras, a woman sat alone. Her name was Linda Price, and she was 71 years old. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She had served in 3 wars as a soldier and general. She had advised for presidents. She had seen things that would have broken lesser people. And right now, she was smiling. Linda pulled out an old flip phone, the kind that nobody used anymore. She typed a short message to a number that existed in no directory. Finally, wake them up. She pressed send and slipped the phone back into her pocket, across the United States. In places that did not appear on any map, things began to happen. In the Nevada desert, beneath 2 miles of rock and sand, lights flickered on in tunnels that had been dark for decades. In Colorado, inside a mountain that officially contained only a communications facility, massive doors began to slowly open. In the deep waters of the Pacific Ocean, submarines that had been sleeping on the ocean floor received coded signals and began to rise. Linda watched the chaos in the UN chamber and felt something she had not felt in a very long time: excitement. She remembered a meeting 50 years ago when she had been a young captain with too many questions. She had been brought to a room with no windows, shown photographs that should not have existed, and told a truth that changed her life. "They are out there," the old general had told her, his voice grave. "We do not know when they will come. We do not know what they will want, but they will come. And when they do, we must be ready." That had been the beginning of Project Prometheus. For 60 years, the brightest minds on Earth had worked in secret. They had reversed alien technology recovered from crash sites. They had developed weapons that could crack moons. They had built ships that could fold space itself. They had done all of this while the rest of humanity worried about wars and economics and celebrity gossip, and they had waited. Linda stood up and made her way toward the exit. A young aide tried to stop her. "General Price, the Secretary General would like your input on." "Tell him to save his breath," Linda said. "The negotiating is over. The real work is about to begin." She walked out of the United Nations building and into a waiting black car. The driver, a young man with the build of a soldier and the eyes of someone who had seen too much, nodded at her. "Where to, General?" "Nevada," she said. "It is time to show the world what we have been building." As the car pulled away, Linda looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was preparing to destroy her world. They had given humanity 90 days because they believed it would make no difference. They believed humans were primitive, weak, and unprepared. They had made a terrible mistake. Linda had spent her entire life preparing for a war that everyone told her would never come. She had sacrificed everything: family, peace, happiness, for a future that might never arrive. And now, finally, it was here. She was not afraid. She was not sad. She was not desperate. She was ready. And somewhere deep in her old soldier's heart, part of her that she rarely acknowledged, was grateful. Grateful that she had lived long enough to see this day. Grateful that all the years of preparation would finally mean something. Grateful that humanity would get a chance to show the universe exactly what it was capable of. The aliens had announced war, and Earth, against all logic and reason, was grinning. 72 hours had passed since the world learned it was going to die. In that time, humanity had shown every emotion possible. There had been riots in some cities and prayer gatherings in others. Stock markets had crashed so hard that governments simply stopped reporting numbers. Some people had given up entirely, sitting in their homes and waiting for the end. Others had thrown themselves into wild parties, determined to enjoy whatever time remained. But in Washington, D.C., something different was happening. Secretary of Defense Kevin Morris stood at a podium in a secure room beneath the White House. Before him sat the most powerful people in America: senators, generals, intelligence chiefs, and the president herself. Their faces were tired and scared. They had spent 3 days trying to find a solution to an impossible problem, and they had found nothing. Kevin was about to change that. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice calm and steady, "I know you are frightened. I know you believe we are facing extinction. And I know that everything you have seen in the past 3 days has convinced you that we have no hope." He paused and looked at each face in turn. "You are wrong." A murmur went through the room. The president, a strong woman named Catherine Bell, leaned forward. "Kevin, this is not the time for false hope." "We need realistic, Madam President," Kevin interrupted gently.
But
"I am about to show you something that only 12 people on this planet have ever seen. After today, that number will grow. But I need you to understand that what I am about to reveal is not false hope. It is not a wish or a dream. It is 60 years of preparation, funded by black budgets that even Congress never knew about. Built by the greatest minds humanity has ever produced." He pressed a button on his remote, and the screens behind him came to life. The first image showed a shipyard, but not any shipyard on Earth. This one was built into an asteroid. Hidden in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, and floating in that shipyard, were warships. Hundreds of them. They were sleek and deadly, bristling with weapons that glowed with strange energy. The Prometheus fleet, Kevin said. 847 combat vessels, ranging from fighters to battleships. Each one equipped with weapons and shields that we reverse-engineered from recovered alien technology. Each one crewed by men and women who had been training for this exact scenario their entire lives.
Ow.
The room was silent. A 4-star general named Patricia Cole stared at the screen with tears running down her face. She had spent 40 years fighting budget cuts and political interference, believing she was protecting a nation. She had never known she was protecting ASP. ECIE's. Kevin changed to the next image. This showed a massive cannon built into the surface of the moon, its barrel pointed at the stars. Project Thor, he explained. A railgun capable of accelerating a tungsten rod to 15% of the speed of light. At that velocity, a single shot carries the energy of a nuclear weapon. We have 47 of these installations hidden throughout the solar system. More images followed. Orbital defense platforms disguised as space debris. Missile silos on Mars. A factory on Europa that produced antimatter by the kilogram. Each revelation hit the room like a physical blow. President Bell finally managed to ask, "How is this possible?" The cost alone would be trillions, Kevin admitted. Hidden in plain sight across decades of military and aerospace budgets, every nation with a space program contributed, whether they knew it or not. The Unified Earth Defense Council has been coordinating this effort since 1973. Every nation? Asked the Russian ambassador, who had been invited despite the unusual circumstances. Kevin nodded. Every nation. The council includes representatives from all major powers. We realized long ago that when the threat came, it would not care about our borders or our politics. Either we stood together, or we died separately. In Nevada, the man responsible for much of this technology was finally seeing his life's work come online. Dr. Samuel Grant was 73 years old, with white hair and thick glasses that made his eyes look too large for his face. He had spent 50 years in underground facilities, missing weddings and funerals and births, sacrificing everything normal about life for a single purpose. And now, standing in the command center of the Prometheus Initiative, he watched as fusion reactors awoke one by one. Each reactor powered weapons that could vaporize mountains. Each weapon was connected to a targeting system that could track an object the size of a baseball from 1,000,000 miles away. How long until we reach full operational capacity? Asked Admiral Patricia Cole, who had flown in from Washington the moment she learned the truth. 6 weeks, Samuel replied, studying the data on his screens. Maybe 5 if we push the crews hard. Push them, Patricia ordered. We do not know if the aliens will keep their word about 90 days. They will, said a voice from the doorway. Both turned to see Linda Price walking in, looking more alive than she had in years. The Dominion are conquerors, but they follow their own rules. They believe it makes them civilized. They will give us exactly 90 days, because anything less would be dishonorable. You seem very certain, Samuel said. Linda smiled. I have been studying them for 50 years. I know how they think, and I know their weakness. Which is, they have never lost. Not once in 3,000 years of conquest. They have become so used to winning that they have forgotten how to imagine defeat. They look at us and see primitives playing with rockets and nuclear toys. They have no idea what is waiting for them. Meanwhile, in a different kind of facility, a young man named Derek Hughes was learning that his entire life had been a lie. Derek had grown up on a farm in Kansas, believing he was just an ordinary person with some unusual abilities. He could run faster than anyone he knew. He could solve complex math problems in his head. Cuts and bruises healed on his body within hours. He had always assumed he was just lucky, blessed with good genes and good health now. Standing in a room filled with hundreds of young people just like him, he understood the truth. You are the children of Project Genesis, explained the woman at the front of the room. Her name was Dr. Carol Manning, and she spoke with the gentle voice of someone delivering difficult news. Your parents volunteered for a genetic enhancement program before you were born. The modifications were designed to create soldiers capable of matching or exceeding alien physiology. Derek looked around at the others. They all had the same confused, betrayed expression on their faces. They had been weapons their whole lives and never knew it. You have a choice, Carol continued. You can walk away right now, return to your lives and pretend this never happened. No one will stop you. No one will judge you. She paused. Or you can stay. You can train. You can become what you were designed to be. And you can help save your species from extinction. Derek thought about his parents, his friends, his quiet life on the farm. He thought about the alien face on the television, cold voice announcing humanity's death sentence. Then he thought about what it would feel like to do nothing while his world burned. He stepped forward. Where do I sign up? One by one, the others followed. Humanity was awakening, and the universe was not ready for what was about to emerge from the shadows. Day 4 arrived with cold silence in the void. Between planets, 3 Dominion scout ships slipped out of hyperspace near the orbit of Mars, their hulls coated with materials that absorbed every form of radiation known to galactic science. They were invisible. They were undetectable. They had performed this mission 1,000 times before. Observing primitive species in the final weeks before conquest, they expected to see chaos. They expected to see desperation. They expected to see a species tearing itself apart in the face of certain death. What they saw confirmed every expectation. Earth's orbital defenses were laughable. A collection of repurposed mining vessels and communication satellites hastily welded together with weapons that belonged in a museum. The largest ship in humanity's visible fleet was a converted cargo hauler with missile tubes bolted to its sides. It looked like something a child might build with spare parts. The lead scout, commanded by a reptilian officer named Krath, recorded everything with cold efficiency. Note: human defensive preparations are proceeding as predicted. Primary orbital assets number fewer than 60 vessels, none exceeding destroyer classification. Ground-based defenses appear limited to chemical propellant missiles and primitive directed energy weapons. Estimated resistance duration, 47 minutes. His crew clicked their tongues in amusement. This would be the easiest conquest in recent memory. What Krath did not know. What his sophisticated sensors could not detect was that he had been spotted the moment he exited hyperspace. A network of quantum entanglement detectors, hidden in chunks of rock that looked like ordinary asteroids, had tracked his arrival with perfect precision aboard the carrier Defiance, which officially did not exist and was currently hiding in a fold of compressed spacetime. Lieutenant Nancy Webb studied her console with quiet satisfaction. 3 contacts, Commander. Dominion Reconnaissance Class. They are heading toward Earth on a standard observation trajectory. Commander Gregory Palmer leaned back in his chair, a cup of coffee growing cold in his hand. He was a tall man with a weathered face and calm eyes that had seen combat on 3 continents before being recruited for something bigger. Let them look, he said. Make sure they see exactly what we want them to see. The deception had been planned for decades. Every visible ship, every obvious weapon, every desperate defensive measure was part of an elaborate performance designed to confirm the enemy's expectations. The aliens believed humans were primitive, so humanity showed them primitive. They believed humans were panicked, so humanity gave them panic. On Earth's surface, the performance continued with Oscar-worthy commitment. News networks broadcast carefully scripted scenes of chaos. Refugees streamed out of major cities in convoys that had been organized by military planners, but looked perfectly spontaneous. Politicians gave tearful speeches about the unfairness of the universe and the slim hope for survival. Religious leaders called for prayers and repentance in coffee shops and living rooms across the world. Ordinary people played their parts without even knowing it. Their genuine fear and confusion was the most convincing element of all. Only a small percentage of the population knew the truth, and they carried that secret with iron discipline. In Geneva, a diplomatic meeting took place that would have seemed absurd if the stakes were not so high. Ambassador? Douglas Gray sat across a polished table from Sithrix, a serpentine creature that served as the Dominion's diplomatic liaison. The alien was beautiful in a terrifying way. With scales that shimmered in constantly shifting colors and eyes that held the patient hunger of a predator. Your species could still choose a different path, Scythrix said, its forked tongue tasting the air between them. Subjugation is not pleasant, but it is survivable. Many species under Dominion rule live comfortable lives, provided they accept their place in the natural order. Douglas kept his expression carefully neutral, letting just enough desperation show through. And what would subjugation involve? Resource extraction, primarily. Earth is rich in certain minerals we require. Your population would be reduced to sustainable levels and organized into labor units. Those with useful skills would be preserved. The rest would be ... processed. Processed, Douglas repeated flatly. The Dominion wastes nothing, Scythrix explained with what might have been a smile. Organic matter has many uses. Douglas felt his stomach turn, but he maintained his mask. We will. Consider your offer. Perhaps there is room for negotiation. Scythrix's tongue flicked out again. There is no negotiation. There is only acceptance or extinction. But I admire your attempt at dignity. It is almost charming. After the meeting, Douglas walked 3 blocks to a small cafe where Linda Price was waiting with 2 cups of coffee. How did it go? She asked. They want to turn us into fertilizer, Douglas said, sitting down heavily. Among other things, Linda nodded as if this was expected. Did they seem suspicious? Not in the slightest. They think we are exactly what we appear to be, scared, primitive, and grasping at any hope of survival. He took a long drink of coffee. I wanted to strangle that thing with my bare hands, soon Linda promised. Very soon, you will get something much more satisfying than strangling, across the solar system. The real preparations continued in perfect secrecy. In the asteroid shipyards, crews worked around the clock to bring the last ships online. The newest vessel, a dreadnought named Nemesis, was the crown jewel of human engineering. It measured 3 kilometers from bow to stern and carried enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Its captain would be Linda Price herself. A final mission for a warrior who had waited her whole life for a worthy enemy, Derek. Hughes was discovering just how much potential his modified body contained. In 6 weeks of intensive training, he had progressed from farm boy to something that terrified even his instructors. He could react faster than the eye could track. He could process tactical information as quickly as a computer. He could fight for hours without tiring, and he was not alone. The Genesis soldiers, as they had begun calling themselves, numbered nearly 4,000. Each one was a weapon that the Dominion had never imagined and could not prepare for. On day 63, Linda gathered her senior commanders for a final briefing. The holographic display showed the solar system. With Earth at the center and projected enemy approach vectors marked in red, intelligence suggests the Dominion fleet will number approximately 12,000 vessels, she began. Their flagship, the Sovereign's Fist, is the size of a small moon and carries a crew of 10 million. They will expect to achieve orbit within 4 hours and complete planetary bombardment within 12. She smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. They are wrong. The moment they exit hyperspace, we spring the trap. Thor batteries will target their largest ships first. The Prometheus fleet will emerge from concealment and engage their main battle line. Genesis teams will board their flagship and eliminate their command structure. She looked around the room at faces that showed no fear, only eager anticipation. For 60 years, we have prepared for this moment. We have built. We have trained. We have waited. Now, finally, we get to show the universe what humanity is capable of when it stops fighting itself and starts fighting together. She stood straighter, and her voice carried the weight of a species ready for war. They think they are coming to slaughter sheep. They have no idea they are walking into a den of wolves. And when this is over, the galaxy will learn a lesson it will never forget. Humanity is not prey. Humanity is not a victim. Humanity is the thing that monsters should fear. The room erupted in cheers. Day 90 was approaching, and Earth was ready. Day 90 began with the death of stars, at exactly midnight. Greenwich Mean Time. The sky above Earth rippled like the surface of a disturbed pond. 12,000 points of light appeared, where moments before there had been only darkness. Each point was a warship. Each warship was an instrument of extinction. Together, they formed the largest armada the Dominion Collective had assembled in 300 years. Admiral Grinned stood on the bridge of the Sovereign's Fist, watching his fleet emerge from hyperspace with the satisfaction of a craftsman admiring his work. He was old by his species standards, nearly 4 centuries of service marked by an unbroken string of victories. He had conquered 17 worlds and overseen the subjugation of 8 intelligent species. This would be his 18th report, he commanded, his tactical officer. A tall insectoid similar to the ambassador who had delivered Earth's death sentence studied the sensor data. Human defenses are holding position in high orbit. Approximately 57 vessels, all consistent with previously observed technology. No unexpected contacts. Grinned allowed himself a moment of disappointment. He had hoped the humans might provide some small challenge, some brief excitement before the inevitable conclusion. Instead, they had apparently spent their 90 days cobbling together whatever they could find and hoping for a miracle. There would be no miracle. Begin the assault, Grinned ordered. First wave, target their orbital assets. Second wave, establish bombardment positions. I want their major population centers burning within 6 hours. The first wave of Dominion fighters screamed toward Earth. 500 sleek craft piloted by warriors who had trained their entire lives for war. They crossed the distance in minutes, their targeting systems locking onto the pitiful human ships. They never reached their targets. The first shot came from nowhere. A streak of light that moved faster than sensors could track. It punched through the lead fighter's shields as if they did not exist, vaporized the pilot, and continued on to destroy 2 more ships behind it. Before the other pilots could even process what had happened, 47 more shots followed. On the Sovereign's Fist, alarms began to wail. Contact. Multiple contacts emerging from Admiral, I cannot determine their point of origin. They are simply appearing. Space itself seemed to tear open in a dozen places around the Dominion fleet. Ships materialized from folds in reality, vessels that should have been impossible. They were beautiful in the way that predators are beautiful, all sleek lines and deadly purpose. At their head flew the Nemesis, its hull gleaming with energy shields that pulsed like a living heartbeat. Admiral Linda Price sat in the command chair of humanity's greatest warship, watching the Dominion fleet through sensors that could count the rivets on an enemy hull from a light second away. She had waited 71 years for this moment. She intended to enjoy it. All ships, she said, her voice calm and cold and carrying across the fleet through quantum-linked communications. Weapons free. The Battle of Earth began in earnest. Human railguns opened fire. Each shot a slug of tungsten moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The projectiles hit Dominion ships faster than their sensors could react, punching through shields and armor like needles through paper. Vessels that had survived hundreds of engagements died in seconds, their crews never knowing what killed them. Quantum torpedoes followed, weapons that existed in a state of probability until the moment of impact, making them impossible to intercept. They materialized inside enemy ships, bypassing every defense, detonated with the force of small suns. On the Dominion side, confusion became chaos, and chaos became panic. Their tactical doctrines, refined over centuries of conquest, assumed technological superiority. They had no procedures for fighting an enemy with better weapons. They had no experience with defeat. Admiral Grinned watched in disbelief as his fleet began to die. Return fire. All batteries, return fire. Dominion weapons lashed out, enough concentrated firepower to crack the crust of a planet. It splashed against human shields and accomplished nothing. The energy was absorbed, redirected, and thrown back at its source with interest in the fighter formations. Derek Hughes and his Genesis siblings were showing the galaxy what enhanced humans could do. Their craft moved with impossible agility, executing maneuvers that would have killed any normal pilot. Each Genesis soldier was worth 100 enemy fighters, their enhanced reflexes and tactical processing, turning every engagement into a massacre. Derek had destroyed 14 enemies in the first 3 minutes. He felt no fear, no hesitation, only a cold clarity that made the chaos of battle seem almost peaceful. His hands moved before his conscious mind could form thoughts, reacting to threats faster than natural humans could perceive. Genesis lead. Enemy dreadnought bearing 0, designating primary target. Crackled through his communication system, Derek looked at his tactical display, saw the Sovereign's fist for the first time. It was enormous, a moon-sized vessel surrounded by a swarm of escorts. It was also bleeding atmosphere from a dozen wounds where Thor batteries had scored hits. Copy command. Genesis Squadron moving to engage. While the space battle raged, a different kind of war was being fought inside the Dominion flagship. Commander Gregory Palmer had led a strike team through a breach in the hull. Now they were cutting their way toward the bridge. The corridors of the Sovereign's fist ran with alien blood. Dominion soldiers had never faced human marines in close combat before. They had trained to fight the weak, the conquered, the already defeated. They were not prepared for warriors who moved like ghosts, shot with perfect accuracy, and refused to die even when wounded. Gregory put a round through the head of a Dominion officer and kept moving. Behind him, his team maintained perfect discipline, covering angles and clearing rooms with the efficiency of people who had practiced these motions 10,000 times. Command, we are approaching the bridge. Estimate 2 minutes to breach. On the Nemesis, Linda watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The Dominion fleet was breaking. Ships were fleeing toward hyperspace, abandoning their comrades in desperate attempts to survive. The coordinated armada had dissolved into a panicked mob. Admiral reported her tactical officer, "Enemy casualties exceed 7,000 vessels. Our losses stand at 43 ships, with another 112 reporting damage." Linda nodded. Better than she had hoped? Worse than she had feared? Every human ship loss meant thousands of families who would receive terrible news. Every human life extinguished was a tragedy, no matter how great the victory. But that was the nature of war, and humanity had chosen to wage this one with everything it had on the Sovereign's fist. Gregory's team breached the bridge. Admiral Grinned turned as the doors exploded inward, reaching for the ceremonial blade at his side. He was a warrior, after all, despite centuries spent in command chairs. He would not die cowering. Gregory did not give him the chance to fight. With honor, the human commander moved with speed that seemed almost supernatural, closing the distance before Grinned could draw his weapon. A combat knife, simple and brutal, found the gap in the Admiral's armor and slid home. Grinned looked down at the blade in his chest, then up at the face of his killer. He saw something there that he had never seen before in a prey species. Not fear, not desperation, not hope. He saw satisfaction. He saw the cold joy of a predator that had caught its quarry after a long hunt. How? Grinned managed to gasp. Gregory leaned close, twisting the knife. "You made a mistake. You told us you were coming. You gave us time to prepare. And you forgot the most important rule of hunting." He pulled the knife free and let the Admiral fall. Never announce yourself to something that might be more dangerous than you. Battle lasted 6 hours in total, though the outcome was decided much sooner. Of the 12,000 Dominion ships that had arrived with such confidence, fewer than 800 escaped to hyperspace. The rest were debris, expanding clouds of metal and organic matter that would orbit Earth's sun for millennia. Humanity had won its first war against the stars in the galaxy, would never be the same. The Galactic Council Chamber had stood for 9,000 years, a monument to the order and stability that the great powers of the universe had built together. Its walls were carved from stone quarried on 100 worlds. Its ceiling displayed a living map of known space, with each member species represented by a glowing point of light. For millennia, those lights had only grown in number, spreading the reach of civilization ever further into the void. Now, the representatives of 47 species sat in that ancient hall and watched recordings of their greatest fleet being systematically destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Ambassador Veltrix stood at the center of the chamber, no longer radiating the cold confidence that had marked his declaration of war against Earth. His compound eyes were dull. His mandibles hung slack. He looked like what he was, a being who had made a catastrophic error and was only beginning to understand its consequences. "The footage is authentic," confirmed the keeper of records, a crystalline entity that served as the Council's official historian. The Dominion Combined Fleet engaged human forces approximately 14 standard cycles ago. The result was decisive. "Decisive," repeated High Counselor Tharn, an ancient being whose species had ruled the Council for 3,000 years. His voice was calm, but his forehands were trembling slightly. An interesting word for the near-total annihilation of the most powerful military force ever assembled by the collective. A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. Species that had considered themselves masters of the universe were confronting an uncomfortable truth. They had been wrong about humanity. Terribly, perhaps fatally, wrong. "We must discuss terms of surrender," suggested a delegate from the Vrix Confederacy, a coalition of trading species known for their pragmatism. "If we approach them quickly, perhaps we can negotiate favorable." "You misunderstand the situation," Tharn interrupted. "The humans have not requested our surrender. They have not made any demands at all. They have simply requested a meeting. Here, today." The chamber fell silent. In the long history of the Galactic Council, defeated species came to this hall as supplicants. They begged for mercy. They accepted terms. They did not request meetings as if they were equals. The doors at the far end of the chamber opened. Ambassador Douglas Gray walked in with the easy confidence of a man entering his own living room. He wore a simple black suit with no medals, no insignia, no decoration of any kind. Behind him walked 4 Marines in powered armor, their weapons not drawn but very clearly present. Every eye in the chamber followed him as he made his way to the central platform. He passed within arm's reach of Veltrix, and the insectoid ambassador flinched backward as if expecting a blow. Douglas did not even acknowledge his existence. He stopped at the speaker's position and looked out at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. For a long moment, he said nothing. He simply let them look at him, let them study the face of the species they had tried to exterminate. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council," he finally began, his voice carrying easily through the perfect acoustics of the ancient hall. 93 days ago, your representative declared war on Earth. He informed us that we had been judged a threat to galactic stability. He told us that our destruction was inevitable. He gave us 90 days to prepare, as required by your laws. Douglas paused, letting the memory of that transmission hang in the air. "We did prepare, but not in the way you expected. You see, we knew this day would come. Not the specific date, not the specific enemy, but we knew that eventually something out there would try to destroy us. And we decided long ago that we would be ready when it happened." He began to walk slowly across the platform, meeting eyes with delegates who quickly looked away. "Your scouts observed our world and saw chaos. They saw panic and desperation and primitive technology. They reported exactly what we wanted them to report. Because humanity has had a lot of practice at war, Council members, we have spent our entire existence fighting ourselves. We have developed arts of deception and strategy that you cannot imagine. We have learned to hide strength behind apparent weakness." He stopped and faced the chamber directly. "The fleet you sent against us represented the combined military power of 47 species, 12,000 ships, crewed by tens of millions of your finest warriors. And we destroyed it in 6 hours with a fraction of our actual strength." A sound like collective gasping echoed through the hall. Douglas let it fade before continuing. "I am here to deliver a message, not a threat, not a demand, simply information that I believe you should have." He raised one hand and ticked off points on his fingers. "First, we know where your homeworlds are. All of them. We have known for decades. We have had weapons pointed at every world represented in this chamber for longer than most of you have held your positions." Another ripple of fear. "Second, we did not seek this conflict. We were content to develop in our own corner of space, at our own pace, in our own way. Your collective made the decision to threaten us. Your collective sent a fleet to exterminate us. We simply responded to the situation you created. He lowered his hand. Third and most important, we are not your enemies. We do not want conquest. We do not want subjugation. We do not want to rule the galaxy or impose our will on other species. We simply want to be left alone. Douglas paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was harder. But if we are not left alone, if any species, any coalition, any force in this galaxy decides to threaten Earth again, we will respond. And our response will not be measured or proportional. It will be absolute. We will not defend ourselves. We will destroy you completely, permanently, without mercy or hesitation. The High Counselor Tharn leaned forward. Ambassador Gray, surely you understand that such threats are counterproductive to peaceful relations. Douglas smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. Counselor, I am not making threats. I am describing facts. Humanity has spent its entire history at war. We have perfected the art of killing to a degree that clearly surpasses anything your civilization has achieved. And we have done this while fighting with one hand tied behind our back, limited by our own internal conflicts and moral constraints. He stepped closer to the High Counselor's platform. When the Dominion announced their intention to exterminate us, something changed. For the first time in our history, humanity was united. Every nation, every culture, every individual working toward a common goal. Do you understand what that means? You faced a fraction of what we are capable of when we are divided. Now we are united. Now we are angry. And now we know that the galaxy is not a place of peace and cooperation, but a place of predators and prey. He spread his hands. We choose not to be prey. The chamber was utterly silent. Representatives who had ruled empires and controlled billions of lives looked at the human. Ambassador was something very close to terror. Douglas turned and walked back toward the doors. At the threshold, he paused and looked back one final time. We are going to be expanding into space now. We are going to colonize worlds and build stations and spread across the stars, as is our right as an intelligent species. If anyone has objections to this, I suggest you keep them to yourselves. He smiled again. Sleep well, council members. And remember, we will be watching. The human delegation departed. The doors closed behind them, and the assembled powers of the galaxy sat in their ancient chamber, contemplating a future that had suddenly become very uncertain. On Earth, the celebrations had begun. In every city, on every continent, humanity celebrated its survival and its victory. People danced in the streets. Strangers embraced each other. For one brief shining moment, the divisions of history were forgotten in the joy of continued existence. In Nevada, in a facility that the world now knew existed, Linda Price watched the festivities on a monitor. She was tired. The battle had taken more from her than she had expected, but she was also satisfied in a way she had never been before. We did it, Samuel Grant said, standing beside her. We actually did it. We did, Linda agreed. But this is just the beginning. The galaxy knows about us now. They fear us, and fear makes people do dangerous things. She turned away from the screen and faced her old friend. We need to keep building, keep preparing, keep getting stronger. Because now that we have announced ourselves to the universe, we can never show weakness again. Samuel nodded. The Council will try to contain us, limit our expansion, find ways to weaken us without direct confrontation. Let them try, Linda said. They had their chance to destroy us when we were weak and divided. They failed. They will not get another opportunity. Somewhere above them, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the moon, beyond the orbiting debris that had once been an alien armada, the stars waited. They had always waited, cold and distant and full of dangers. But now, humanity looked up at those stars with different eyes. Not with wonder, not with fear, not with the innocent curiosity of a species taking its first steps into the unknown. Humanity looked up at the stars with the calm, patient gaze of a predator surveying its territory. The galaxy had announced war, and Earth had grinned. because it had been waiting for exactly this moment for a very, very long time now. The universe would learn what that grin meant.